But if
Right.
you can marry those two, what is the message and why, how do we make this so it's not confusing? How do we translate this into people understanding, through their jobs, through their roles, through their levels within an organization, their background, where are they in the globe? It really does depend on the org. And how am I going to get my managers to make sure that that's clear to them as well? And a lot of people are inquisitive, like myself. They want to see the entire roadmap. And I think what's interesting with strategy is a lot of people think it's like a really detailed plan, but that's not actually what a strategy is. A strategy is a process that you go through to define how your business is going to thrive. So it's very different to the plan and the roadmap. So I think sometimes we need to clarify strategy, roadmap, two different things. We're here communicating a vision, and this is the plan that we think, and these are the points that you can kind of come in. And yeah, if your workforce are coming back and saying, we go for, maybe as an exec co, you consider that. Is there a small portion of resources that we can do to maintain that client base? Do we have like forums with individuals where they can voice what that concern is with that change? How can we win them over with this? What exercises can we give people to get them to come to the same conclusions that we did? What were the turning points in those 5 months? Where were the aha moments for us? Did we document them? How do we get our people to have those same aha moments? Because they need to feel as part of that process. And I guess that's kind of the juxtaposition that I really enjoy. And that's what my department is in part responsible for.
Right. And
Hopefully
you
I've answered
mentioned quite
your question
rightly that the strategy typically is a long process. 5 months is not unreasonable, where
there.
a room of people get together, consistently talk it through.
No.
And I've seen myself in that meeting. Even you get maybe a CEO that's read a book,
Mm.
and that then becomes the strategy. And there's head scratching inside that room for 5 months until they
Mm.
get it.
Mm.
And then there's almost this sort of watershed moment, maybe a company
Mm.
kickoff or something, where,
Mm.
a few people will stand on stage and say, this is our strategy.
Mm.
And they expect everyone just to kind of adapt it and adopt it and understand it instantly
Mm.
when they haven't had the privilege of that 5 months.
Yeah.
So in your view, do you think that there's a sort of a kickoff moment where you say, look, we have a new strategy, and then you're done and you sort of train your people to carry it forward? Or do you think it's a longer process for the exco to consistently stand on stage and consistently talk to people over a period of time so that it embeds?
Mm. I think you're seeing an evolution of town halls, adoptions of, leadership connecting with, essentially the grassroots of their organizations, kind of creating that flow of information, because orgs are just flows of information, lots of little projects being pulled together in order to reach a destination with the resources that you have. I think it's important for Execco to prime an organization through its managers in what the strategy would be, whether that's in your strategy phase of maybe having workshops with the organization. What would you like to see? Putting out pulse surveys. It is a responsibility, I've got to say, of employees of organizations when they do get these surveys, partake in them. If you're not partaking
Mm-hmm.
in them, then you've contributed to maybe the lack of clarity that you have or the slight resistance that you might demonstrate because it feels like a change. But really, there would have been a lot of asking of questions over a period of time. And if you partook in them, then that would have given information to that 5-month strategy process, if you like. If you didn't,
Right.
then they're limited on their information. So everybody has responsibility for that.
Right.
I
So I
think,
think what I'm hearing there is you sort of warm the people up so they
yeah,
know it's coming and get them to be involved, even if they're not involved in the decision-making
yeah,
process. They're involved
absolutely.
in the awareness of the process so that when it happens, it's not a complete surprise and they feel
Yeah.
engaged.
Yeah, it's about getting your organization to understand that you're constantly evolving depending on what's
Yep.
going on in the market, and that's
Yep.
normal, that's natural.